Hello and welcome to Emerging Media. Today we will be talking about this week's tech trends as part of our continuing conversation about the intersection of journalism and technology. I'm Sarah.
I'm Kara.
And I'm Hope.
All right, so I don't know what you all found this week. On my end, I was reading Nieman Lab, and I found this article talking about Newsweek's return to print. And I thought that was pretty interesting just because I remember the day in 2012 that they stopped having a print edition, and I thought, I was kind of questioning, well, why are they returning? And it was such a big deal at the time for them to be all digital. And something interesting is that they're kind of turning subscription models on its head. They're going to be charging around $150 a year for a print subscription, which is pretty high in comparison to especially Time, which allows you to have a print and digital subscription for $30 a year. And then it looks like their digital subscription is going to be about $40 a year. So it sounds like it's going to be a steep slope to me at first coming back, but I guess if they're successful, it could kind of challenge traditional subscription pay models.
Yeah, I'm really curious. I really haven't had the time to look into it. I did see that on Nieman also. I'm wondering if they made the decision on the part of looking at what demographics that are really reading Newsweek the most, and from there making the decision if they have older demographics who would rather have the print edition and would pay the money for it if they decided, hey, we're actually losing people in that area, which could be the most valuable to them because of the online transition. Let's go and start printing again.
I definitely think it's a contradiction of what everyone has been saying is the trend for print is it's converting more of just being all digital, and everyone keeps saying, well, eventually we won't even have print, and so I think it's really interesting that this is kind of making a comeback, and I agree. I think a lot of that probably has to do with its demographics. It was really surprising. I hadn't heard that, and so it was really surprising when you brought that up.
And I guess I come from sort of a Time background. I've always read Time, and my family has always kind of leaned that way, and I think I probably am skewed toward liking Time better, but I don't know if that's more of just my loyalty to that, magazine. But it sounds like Newsweek is really going to be targeting the base of customers it really had that were always reading this paper or this magazine, I guess, in the past. And it sounds like they're only really shooting for 100,000 subscribers in the U.S. is their goal for this year, which to me sounds low. But with the pay model they have, they're saying that 80% of their revenue can come from just the money they make from the subscriptions. So it's kind of turning that upside down, where you're not as reliant on your advertising. It sounds like the first press run was about 70,000 copies, and it looks like their high was about 3.3 million. So what's more important, numbers are...
Yeah, I was just going to say definitely quality over quantity, I guess, in this sense, just because they will be paying more for the product rather than focusing on getting, more viewers or more readers in this case. So
I'm wondering if this is something that they are intending to sustain for the long run, or just take it as it goes, especially with it seeming like maybe they are targeting an older demographic. And I'm not trying to sound morbid here, but
yeah, where are they going? And I wonder, I haven't really looked into how much success their digital version had. I, as a user, I don't think I would have just paid to have the digital version of Newsweek. And I think that is somewhat tied to my readership of other publications, but I think that the same kind of news that they're offering, there also are still free places to go with that. So do you think people are willing to pay subscription for all digital, or do you think the subscribers are more interested in still having that print edition as something they're going to pay Prime money for?
That's definitely a good question, especially when you would have readers from an older demographic who don't understand or don't appreciate paying for digital media when they're not actually having a tangible magazine in their hands. So
I think it mentions that they promise their paper to be twice as good of quality as other print magazines. I don't know how exactly
Where's
they
the
prove
bar
that,
there?
and also what the benefit of paper that outlasts them all would do, because to me, you recycle that magazine at the end of the month.
Right.
But
what are you printing it on?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that becomes part of the appeal, but I doubt it. And it sounds like just if you want to buy the magazine, it's $8 on the shelf. Mm-hmm. Would you pay $8? I don't know.
It depends.
I don't think I
it
would.
really depends. If there is a cover story or two that really pique my interest, maybe. But I mean, and even $8 for a magazine isn't even that steep these days, though.
Yeah, it depends. I think of more specialty. I don't think of news magazines as charging that much. I think of photography or fashion. Some sort of, like you're saying,
Thick and glossy.
very specific audience. Maybe that's what they're looking for. It also sounds like they want to go and reach more of a global audience as well. It's interesting. It also kind of makes me wonder, what is Time doing right? Because I think they have consistently seemed to keep this audience. And I don't actually know what their numbers are. I don't know if their audience has gone down. It may very well have. I'm not as familiar on that.
And what's their subscription price in comparison?
It's $30 a year for both print and digital.
Okay.
So
I mean,
how do you compare
that's a
150?
pretty tight deal,
Right.
So, yeah.
And I think the
Definitely.
150 is just for print.
Yeah, I honestly think that.
I know 150 is for everything, I guess. But
I honestly think that, like, you know, the everything package is definitely, I guess, like the safer bet for like these news magazines, just because like that way you are catering to both audiences. And I think that like having such a steep price for both, I mean, I guess it makes it worth it a little bit more. But I mean, like you said, when you compare it to $30 at Time Magazine with the same quality, you know, you're definitely going to have very loyal consumers to get them to pay that, you know, that extra money.
I also wonder if Time benefits from having writers that have sort of a name in of themselves. That the writers there, you recognize their names. They sort of have worked there for a long time or worked in the industry for a long time. And it sounds like a lot of these new Newsweek staffers are new. And so also you have not necessarily writers, you know, in their own right are great, you know, and talented people, but they may not have that name recognition that
Right, exactly.
the writers at Times.
And I think also, too, another idea with the bundling package is that you do provide readers with the print edition, but also, too, at the same time, you're able to gradually move them towards the digital edition and show them the possibilities for that, especially in the areas of multimedia projects and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that Newsweek will have another, you know, last print edition coming soon?
I don't know.
Wouldn't that be sad?
I mean,
If it just,
I don't wanna
how
see
many last
this
print
fail.
editions do you have? I mean,
Yeah.
not to bash on Newsweek.
I mean, it's kind of, you don't want, I don't want to see that. It kind of makes
Right.
me think of, you know, old athletes coming in and out of retirement. It's kind of gets to the point of, are we gonna stop after a while? Or are we gonna give this
Yeah.
up? So I don't know. I mean, I wish them the best with it. I'm not going to pay $150, but
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think that one is just kind of a wait and see kind of story
Definitely.
it will be interesting to follow
Definitely.
coming up. So
Great.
what else is interesting you all this week?
Well, something I came across yesterday on GigOhm is an article about how Reddit is beta testing a new live reporting feature. This brings up a lot of questions and a lot of controversy, especially when you go back and look at how Reddit was used during April last year, during the time of the Boston bombings, and some of the positive and not so positive results that came out of that, the implications for what was picked up by the media, some of which was right, some of which was wrong. So it'll be interesting to see. So far, only users who have been selected by moderators on Reddit have been given the opportunity to test. It has been used, its first beta test was used in a thread called Twitch Plays Pokemon. It was someone playing an old-fashioned Pokemon game via real-time chat. So there you go. That's definitely traditional Reddit style, something kind of zany that people are inputting into. But now they are actually using another beta test to look at and chronicle the up-to-the-minute updates with the situation in Ukraine. So it's really, it'll it'll be interesting to see what comes out of it. So, what do you all think about that?
I actually heard about the Twitch Plays Pokemon thing, and I was really confused about like what it actually was. So I didn't even know that it was this like live reporting. I have really geeky friends who like to play Pokemon, and we're talking about it one day, but I mean, I'm not interested in that sort of thing, so I kind of tuned it out. So that's like really, I don't know, it's an interesting idea that these things can be tested with something as like silly as Pokemon, and especially because I mean Reddit, just when I think of Reddit, I think of people sitting on the internet just looking at random cat photos and who knows what else. So I think it's really interesting that this sort of like technology is coming from an unlikely place, I guess.
Could you talk a little bit about what happened in April? Because I don't think I was visiting the site then.
In April, as soon as it was pretty rapid after the initial bombings actually occurred. As soon as the situation occurred with the Boston Marathon, where the bombs went off, probably within minutes, people started compiling links to tweets, links to different websites, links to Boston Globe, so on and so forth, different sources, some which were totally legitimate and some which were not, onto a subreddit on the site. And from there, just had a running thread for hours, days, almost a couple weeks after, not too long, of different updates with the story, what was going on. And on the surface, it seemed totally awesome. At first, I remember coming across it and being like, wow, I've just found the treasure trove of coverage. But at the same time, there were a lot of things on that site that ended up being fake, and it just came from people just rushing to throw things up on the subreddit just because everything was coming out, and it was such a shocking situation. So it turned out to be something that I feel in part hurt the public perspective of Reddit's application in a journalism sense, but in other ways helped it. I mean, seeing on the surface that you could definitely use it to aggregate things very quickly. I mean, that was fantastic, and crowdsource information that people from the Boston area and even in different parts of the country were getting, but at the same time, it showed the potential for false information to be presented so widely and for people to pick it up so quickly. And I think even the mistake that was made over the initial identification of the bombers occurred because of something that was posted on Reddit. I may be incorrect, but I think it may have stemmed from that. So, what do you do here with this beta testing? Honestly, I have high hopes for it. Ever since last April, I've spent more time on Reddit. I really, for the most part, really like the site, but it'll just it'll have to be seen. It'll take stronger moderation to make sure that things are correct, some sort of verification. It'll be a collaborative effort. Of course, there's no way to automatically sort things through, but can we really use it as an alternative to a live feed from, say, the New York Times, the lead live blog, or what Boston Globe was doing when they dropped the paywall and they had the live blog for days on end? Mm-hmm. Is it really something that you can depend on? Do we know if these people have the ability to discern the media they're picking up, or even have the best interests of other people in mind?
Mm-hmm. Right. I just, I don't know, just like hearing your description of it, I mean, it just makes me think of like a lot of the concerns that people have with like Twitter and people wanting to tweet first from an event or from, whatever the breaking news is. And so I honestly think that I also think that this could be something, Reddit could be something very positive, because, when Twitter first started becoming used in news coverage, people had the same concerns. Like, well, what is keeping people from tweeting false information? And I mean, we still have that to some extent, and we had that, during the Boston Marathon. That was a problem, but, people are still embracing Twitter. You know, people still use Twitter regardless of those, you know, occasional downsides to it. So I agree. I think that this could definitely go somewhere and be just another source for people, you know, who maybe are already on Reddit, you know, and didn't go there for news. But I think that it's very important because even if they didn't go there for news, to be able to be more informed based on visiting the site is a positive impact.
I do think it's interesting to see the direction of strictly sort of a social site. Still, you're seeing news influences creep up there. And I think it's, if news sites can figure out how do they provide the accurate coverage and also engage people in the same social way that a site like Reddit does, that's really, I think, where you mesh both worlds and you find your audience and you find an audience that is going to keep you in business. And I think that's something that not every news site has been able to do well, because there's this traditional kind of mindset that you provide the news to the people don't provide the news to you. There's a barrier there, and you want to create social, you know, a social conversation, and you want people to comment, but you don't necessarily want their comments to alter your coverage of whatever your expert coverage is. So I guess my question for you would be, even, how do you see something like this affecting just more traditional news sites? How do you think news sites could integrate something like that?
I definitely think that news sites can integrate something like this. I know that we talked about this before, but the Kinja platform for Gawker has proved to be very positive for the site, allowed people to interact with stories in a way that has been possible before. But at the same time, I just keep on thinking there's such a strong need for some sort of method of verification. And that's the issue. Having more people contribute makes journalism better. And I'm sorry that I'm quoting Jay Rosen and saying that, but I should attribute that to him. But at the same time, we can't, do we have to take the risk now of having up-to-the-minute coverage coming out that could possibly be false or not 100% true? Is that something that we have to risk now? So it stands to be seen. I think sites should definitely, and a lot of sites have moved in this direction of having live blogs for up-to-the-minute event coverage in the event of situations like this. But should it become a permanent staple? I don't know. I'd like to see bigger news sites try this. I'd like to see more established media do this rather than just a site that, unfortunately, in our culture is still regarded very much so as a place where you go to look at silly photos and, you know, the subreddit of your choosing. So
Definitely.
Sure. And did you have anything else you found this
Yeah,
episode?
mine was just a quick news thing. Kickstarter, as of 2 days ago, hit $1 billion in pledges, which is like pretty huge, because, you know, Kickstarter started as just a private company, a few people, you know, looking to do these kind of community-funded projects, and I think it's, you know, amazing that, you know, now they've hit $1 billion in pledges, and people are really, I guess, like embracing these startups and like creative projects, because that's really what Kickstarter is all about, is creative projects rather than, you know, maybe creative projects that wouldn't normally receive funding. And so, and actually it might just be that Kickstarter is, you know, an American company, but the United States is the top country for money pledged, and has, you know, like 3 million backers. And so, you know, and a backer could be someone who just pledged $1. So it's kind of hard to, I guess, have that number stand alone. But at the same time, I think it's, I just thought it was a really cool part of like our culture that we are really embracing of these startups and looking to this new technology. So.
Sure. And I think it also has a lot of potential, and we've seen in the past news projects being backed and projects that normally wouldn't be funded, getting funded through Kickstarter.
Definitely.
So it gives, I think that's, gives us a lot to think about for this week and moving forward, and it's just a continuing conversation about some of these trends. So yeah, sure. But thank you for joining us for this week, talking about emerging media, and we hope that you continue to look into this topic as well.